What's up, friends? Welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. We are back. We're joining you on a Tuesday morning, a little unusual for us. Late night on Sunday. Of course, I had to travel on back to Chicago Monday. A bit of a long, crazy day, but we're still going to talk about this game, this Bears Texans game from Sunday night. And yeah, obviously that was a pretty rough one. Rough one to watch for the offense. By now, of course, you guys all know that the Bears did not look very good. Caleb Williams, kind of struggled behind an offensive line that wasn't giving him much help. I'm joined as always by my teammate here, Michael Dwojak. Michael, what were your big takeaways? What was your reaction to watching that game on Sunday?
It was interesting because, obviously it started so well. Like it seemed like on their first drive, Caleb and the offense looked very different. Caleb was 5 for 5 on the first drive. They go down the field. They are converting on third downs, and they get a field goal out of it. And then after that, that was pretty much it, right? Like it just didn't really consistently stay with, what worked so well in the first, drive. And I know obviously the first couple of drives, the first drive are obviously scripted, and then you usually defenses make adjustments to you and that kind of stuff. But it was just so interesting just to see, we've talked about this offensive line, throughout training camp, the off season. We talked about the center position. We talked about who's going to start there, whether they invested enough. And, this is going to be something that I'm sure we'll talk a lot about, where the offensive line just isn't doing it right now. And you can have the conversation about whether Ryan Poles did a good job reinforcing, a really important position for a rookie quarterback. But yeah, it was just interesting just to see, from having such a strong start to the game, how much the offense just didn't look like that at all for like the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's especially disheartening because we knew in January that there were some problems, that the center position needed to be fixed. And that was, first and foremost. And, there were some people wondering whether the Bears would use a really high draft pick on another tackle and maybe try to improve the left tackle spot. And obviously we've had plenty of questions about Nate Davis, and the game on Sunday night it made it even worse. I mean, I can't get over that play where that dude just doesn't touch anybody and lets two guys go right by him. But, and not to pick on him, but that one just really stood out. And so there's obviously issues all across this line. And the way that the Bears and that Ryan Poles approached the offseason, at least, without maybe saying it, but the fact that they only addressed that center spot meant that they were pretty confident with those other four spots. And clearly there's issues all over the place. It's the whole group right now has got to be better. And it's just disheartening because you could go into this season feeling excited that Poles and Eberflus are confident in those other four guys, and after a couple of games, they have a lot of stuff to figure out all across that offensive line. If you're watching with us here on YouTube, thanks for joining. I know we're on a Tuesday. It's a weird one for us. We're not always joining you guys on Tuesday. Do us a favor and hit the thumbs up on YouTube. That's a great way to support the show. Leave us a review on Spotify or Apple if you're listening after the fact. And as always, head over to shawlocal.com to read all of our Bears coverage. And please consider subscribing. That's the best way to support us and support our work. Yeah, Michael, I mean, we can sort of dive into our winners and losers here. And, it was a loss. So I guess we'll start with the losers. We can start on the negative side before we get to any glimmers of positivity we found in this game. What give me your first loser, Michael. What you got?
I'll go with the low hanging fruit. Obviously it's the offensive line, just with what they're not able to do at all. Like the run protection is bad. The pass protection is bad. You can make Caleb Williams part of this too, because, and maybe you'll hit on this, like obviously his development is going to get, stunted, like as we've seen many times before, where he, there have been mistakes that he's made. Yes. Like obviously he's missed some throws. He's not making the right read sometimes, or placing the ball in the right time. But at the same time, like I feel like we've seen a few plays where it's like he makes a bad throw, but the 2 previous plays, he was like rushed and just tried to get out of the way and like try to avoid a sack. And I feel like that's, I know these are professional players and it's easy to say, you got to move past that. But at the human element, it's like, well, I just almost got killed the previous 2 plays. Maybe my rhythm is going to be off. So, yeah, I think my first, the first losers are obviously the offensive line. And it's just a unit because it's not just one guy. It wasn't just Nate Davis. It wasn't just Shelton. It wasn't just, Darnell Wright had not a great game. Tevin Jenkins didn't have a great game. Braxton Jones had a couple spots where he almost, let Caleb Williams almost get killed. Like it was a whole unit that just wasn't defending him at all and not giving him a chance to, make any plays. I mean, I know you put this in your stats story today, but Caleb Williams is the 8th fastest guy, throwing the ball from the snap. Like it's not sure, some plays maybe he's holding onto the ball a little bit too long, but it's not holding on to the ball too long problem. I mean, he barely has 2 seconds to decide what he wants to do. So the offensive line is definitely my first loser of the game. And then the second loser of the game, I'm kind of going to go a little bit out there. Whoever's telling Matt Eberflus to challenge these plays, I don't know what, the second one, I understand, it's a pivotal moment. Maybe, there's something there where maybe the interception, the ball doesn't touch the ground. I understand that you got to take that your shot. But that first challenge, like that wasn't even close. Like, and it happened right in front of Matt Eberflus too. So, I guess the process is my loser of how are they deciding to do this? Did Matt Eberflus decide to challenge that second play because he was getting yelled at by his player in the middle of the field? Like that whole process, that's a loser process right now, and something that kind of needs to be looked on because the Bears could have had another challenge and another timeout later toward the second half, and maybe that helps you with that last minute drive to try to figure things out, and that changes your game plan. Maybe you're more willing to go up the middle, though obviously that doesn't really seem to be something that Shane Waldron wants to do right now either, and we'll talk about that later. But that whole process is just a loser process for me right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I had that on my list too. Clearly somebody was in Eberflus's ear in the headset, and I don't know if it was an overreaction because you don't have a lot of time to make those decisions. But sure. I mean, all of us in the press box had enough time to see the replay before that challenge flag came out. And it was pretty clear, I thought, that neither of those were good challenges. And I don't know if whoever is in the box, even has the broadcast on. I don't know where teams stand on that, if they want that on, if they don't want that distraction. But clearly those were not good challenges. I agree that was definitely a loser. And with the O-line, I'll throw out, obviously I had the offensive line on my list. I had a couple of names down as well. I'm going to, you're right. Darnell Wright was out there trying to block ghosts. Like he just totally whiffed on one of those sacks. And that's your first round pick. I mean, that's the guy who needs to be rock solid. I know he's a young guy. It's year 2, but you gotta, that spot has to be better. And I'll throw out another one. One of my losers is the run game. I mean, where is it? It's going back to that play I mentioned earlier where Nate Davis just didn't block anybody. Like you look at that play, there's 3 or 4 linemen who get beat or don't block the right guy. And I don't know if DeAndre Swift, went towards the wrong hole. I don't know what happened. That's just one play. Obviously it's more than one play. But that was just kind of an example of it's a little bit chaotic right now for this entire offensive line. And they got to figure out at the basic level, they need to know who they're blocking to make these plays work. And we haven't seen that the first 2 games. I mean, this is a Bears team that was second in the league in rushing a year ago, first 2 years ago. I know Justin Fields was a big part of that run game, but you still got to be better. They're looking, I mean, right now I forget. I looked the other day, they might've been 26. That was before Monday Night Football. I don't know if that's changed, but they're towards the bottom of the league in rushing right now. And that was supposed to be one of those things that is going to help your rookie quarterback that they're supposed to be really good at. You went out and paid a running back in DeAndre Swift a bunch of money to be a difference maker for you. And it just hasn't been there. And so that really has to improve, and it has to improve quickly.
Yeah, it definitely does, right? Like, it's just kind of like the running attack was supposed to be their best friend, especially for a rookie quarterback, right? Like, obviously, you brought in this experienced guy. You've got a talented group. Like, DeAndre Swift is good. Obviously, Khalil Herbert is good. He'll pick you up some solid yards. Roshaw Johnson, like, where is he? Like, we don't like what is going on with that as well. So you have a talented group, and you're just getting nothing from it. Like, Caleb Williams shouldn't be your leading rusher. In that game against the Texans. If anything, that you're just replaying what you did with Justin Fields in a lot of different ways. But that room needs to step up. Obviously, it's not just them; it's the offensive line not creating holes for them and not giving them good opportunities. Yeah. But looking back at some of the plays are, why are we going to the outside when we know that their top players are going to the outside, right? Like, why are we? Some of the decision making in that instances are also. You're kind of like, why do we decide to do that? So, that's the biggest thing with this whole thing, and we'll continue talking about it. Is it doesn't feel like it's just one thing that's stopping you from succeeding on this offense. It really just feels like this is a whole group effort right now that is really not allowing you to do anything offensively.
Yeah, in the chat I dropped my Bear Down Nerd Up stat breakdown where you mentioned it, Michael, but I was the main. Or the first part of that is about the time to throw. And yeah, like it doesn't, you don't have to look at the analytics to realize that watching this team that Caleb Williams does not have a lot of time to throw. But when you do look at the analytics, like it's absolutely backing that up. And the thing that stands out to me about that too, and you can say the same thing with Jaden Daniels in Washington, when you have a mobile quarterback, those are typically the guys who hold on to the football the longest. You look at who's leading the league right now, it's Anthony Richardson, it's Jalen Hurts, it's Kyler Murray in terms of how long they're holding onto the football before they release a throw. It's all those mobile guys. Justin Fields is at the tail end of the top 10 right now through 2 games. And both those rookie quarterbacks are playing behind offensive lines that aren't playing very well right now. And it's telling when you look at those numbers, because those are 2 of the guys who you expect to hold onto the football for a long time. They're both mobile guys. They're mobile in different ways. Caleb is more trying to evade sacks and look downfield, right. Whereas Jaden Daniels, of course, is an incredible athlete and a really good runner in sort of the mold of a Justin Fields type guy. But at the end of the day, you want both those guys holding on to the football a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, you would definitely want that.
I'll throw Shane Waldron out for another loser too. And I see a couple of comments here. Let's see. Retro Reactions says, do we have any faith in Shane Waldron anymore? Rick had Waldron as his main loser. And here's the comment that I really want to get to from Robert. Thank you all for joining and for chatting with us. Robert asks, can we actually correct this? And I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah. Like when there's all these issues, no matter who the blame's on, the O-line, Shane Waldron, the quarterback, whatever, how can they fix this? And look, it's got to be better on the offensive line. You put Ryan Bates on IR on Saturday. He's out for 4 games at the minimum with that shoulder injury. It was shoulder and elbow. I don't know what exactly is the more concerning injury there, but he's not available. And so Nate Davis is your starting right guard moving forward. Coleman Shelton is your starting center moving forward for at least 3 more games. That doesn't instill a lot of confidence, Michael.
No, it doesn't. And it kind of just goes back to what we kind of started talking about is why was there where was the investment, I guess, in the offensive line? We're heading into this thing. I feel like we all felt like, the offensive line is going to be great for Ryan Poles. He was an offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. It'll be a strong suit who do a great job with it. And at this point, I would say it's his weakest point, isn't it? Like, obviously the secondary is great. He's developed a good job there. The linebackers are solid. Your defensive line is actually looking very competent. Like, obviously, Montez Sweat was a great addition. Javon Dexter had a great game. Andrew Billings is having a great game. And even bringing in Taylor for a 6th-round pick, that is looking like a really good move. So the defense is set. You brought these perimeter players. You bought these tight ends, and but you didn't build from the ground. Going inside out with the offensive line, and that's showing. And we've seen that with the Cincinnati Bengals right now, where their offensive line doesn't look great, and their best wide receiver is, holding out for a new contract. And like, they're not doing well with an 0-2 start. So It's just interesting because I don't really know what the fixes are. I'm kind of caught in one of these weird positions where it's week 2.
Yeah,
It's week 2.
we
We're 2
try
weeks
not to
in.
overreact.
Yeah, like the season isn't over. Like this isn't like by any means mean that this team is going to be terrible. Offenses start slow in the NFL. This is a very real thing. And the team that you have right now is not even going to look like the team in October, let alone December. So like I'm kind of caught in the middle of like trying to be rational and trying to be like, oh, obviously like they're going to develop, they're going to gain,
Mhm.
rhythm. But at the same time, I'm also kind of in a position where it's kind of like I'm not impressed at all with this offensive line, and I don't know what the fixes are. Like, we don't know what Kieran Amagaji's health is like at all. Like, they've obviously used a high draft pick to bring him in, but we
Mhm.
don't know where he's at this point. I mean, at the center position, do you want to promote Doug Kramer? Like, after all these years at this point, I don't think he's shown like any confidence or for polls or the coaching staff for him to get at least a shot at it and that kind of stuff. So and then you have the injury. So I like is Matt Pryor a solution at the offensive line? It's just one of those weird things where you think it's going to get better and guys are going to figure things out and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the offensive line, you're just kind of like, who's going to come in and step up for this offensive line other than the 5 guys that are out there right now?
Yeah, and Torian has a great comment here. If we can't run against the Colts, this season is over. Yeah, just looking at the numbers, I mean, the Colts are dead last against the run defensively. This is a game where you gotta figure it out. Like if you can't figure it out against these guys, I don't know if you're gonna figure it out against anyone. And there's some chatter too in the comments about why does Shane Waldron hate Khalil Herbert? Yeah, Herbert played 6 snaps in this game. Roshan Johnson didn't play a single snap for the offense. Travis Homer has been the third down back and sort of your blocking guy. I don't know why. I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, I know why you don't trust Khalil Herbert. Like he's had issues blocking. I just think that you would want your best playmakers out there. I don't know, but you could argue either way on that. If you don't have a guy in there who can block, then you're going to say, well, why isn't there somebody in there who can block? And so, yeah, like, look, you need DeAndre Swift to be your guy. That's why he's here. You can argue about who's the third running back, who's the second, third, whatever. You need DeAndre Swift to be your workhorse. That's why you brought him here. And yeah, it's got to start with the offensive line, of course. I know it's all doom and gloom. We're having a rough week here, Bears fans. I understand, but Michael, let's throw out a couple winners. Let's bring a little positivity back to the show. Who you got? Who's a winner from Sunday night?
I think one of my winners. I'll go with Javon Dexter. I think he was your pick to click on Friday, and I think he had a great game. He had that sack. In the first 2 weeks, I feel like we've seen him become what they kind of hoped he would become. He's creating constant pressure. He's getting stops up the middle. I think he's doing a really good job. And again, that's another big development piece that you're getting where, your second year player that you spent a high draft pick last year is developing. And I think that's great to see. He's doing a good job with all of that. And then my second winner is just going to be the defense in general. Ideally, obviously, you don't want to play this game where like you start off slow in the first half and then you figure things out in the second half and you play much better. But at the end of the day, you held the Texans to 19 points. You held them to 3 points in the second half. Like they proved that, in my mind, that they're a top 5 defense. I think that they proved that they can make defensive stops to get that fumble, to give that the Bears a chance to put points on the board. They make the Texans go 3 and out at the end of the game to give the Bears offense a chance to drive down the field to maybe win the game. So this defense looks legit. It's got playmakers. Did it give up? Can it, hurry things up a little bit and maybe not start the first half as slowly as it has in the first game? Sure. But again, it's the first 2 weeks of the season for them too. So I'm really encouraged by what this defense is. And after 2 weeks, I would definitely say that they likely are a top 5 defense.
I'm going to throw for one of my winners. I'm going to throw out the Bears secondary, and with the caveat, of course, that Nico Collins was going off in that first half. Like he was playing really, really well. That guy looks really good. That's the most impressive. I know it's only 2 games, but he was clearly the most impressive wide receiver we've seen. so far. And I like the way that the Bears secondary came back in that second half and really was able to slow the Texans, slow that passing game down, because they scored 13 points on those first 3 drives. And then they were pretty much quiet the rest of the game. A couple of field goals was all they were able to get after that. And you are really, really encouraged by this defense as a whole.
Yeah.
I think, Tyreek Stevenson was maybe getting picked on a little bit there early in the game, but played well in the second half. And obviously Jalen Johnson is rock solid. I think it's pretty clear that teams are still going to try to avoid throwing near him. And that's just something the Bears are going to have to live with. But the defense is good enough to win you games. We saw that in week 1, and that's still clearly the case. I mean, that's one of the best teams in the AFC. That's a team that's, they're 2-0 right now. They won a bunch of games last year. They have really high hopes of competing in the playoffs. And you lost that game by 6 points. As bad as things were on the offensive end, I think that's a real positive for the Bears right now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, for, how doom and gloom the offense kind of seems. If you look at the grand scheme of things, and I know Bears fans might be annoyed to hear this, but you have a defense that can lead you to wins if the offense doesn't get it in its own way, right? Like, I think, and that's something that we've been used to for a very long time, obviously, as Bear fans, but I do think that you have a defense that's going to, that defense almost won them the game on Sunday. The way how the offense put 7 points on the board was because the defense made a 3-and-out. They were forced to punt fairly deep from their own territory. And I think the Bears started on their own 49 or the Houston 49 and didn't have to go as far away as they needed to the rest of the game. So, this defense is going to keep you in games. It's going to win you some games. The biggest thing right now at this point is getting the offense to I've seen some comments in the group as well, where you just need the offense to be competent right now. You don't need to win games because of the offense. You don't need to, you don't need to put on, 28 points, 32 points or anything like that. You just need an offense that's competent, that can complement the defense. And hopefully you just see them grow as, we move on here. And maybe toward the second half of the season, once they start division play, they can really, maybe start to figure things out offensively to complement one of the best defenses.
That's the thing in both of these first 2 games. 20 points was enough to win. You got to score 20 points, and that in the NFL that it's hard to score at all, but that's not really that much. I mean, that should be doable if you have a competent offense. Michael, you got any other winners from last night or Sunday night rather?
I think that was pretty much it. I mean, it's kind of hard because when I was putting out the 3-and-out on Sunday night, I had the things that didn't go well pretty quickly, and then we're 5 minutes left, and I'm like, ooh, what am I going to put other than the offense? Maybe I'll include this. It was one of my things that worked well. I think that first drive for Caleb Williams showed a lot of promise. Yeah. I think you saw what that offense could become. Right. I think that's the biggest thing. You saw a good glimpse of Caleb making really impressive throws on third down to pick it up.
Third down conversions, yep.
You saw good things from this offense, and I think that's a good thing. It wasn't all – I know obviously you got to see it more consistently, and you can't just see it for one drive or 2 drives or whatever. But you did see that glimpse there. It's there. I think you saw the Caleb Williams' ability to, make big plays. And I think that's the biggest thing you can maybe take from that offensively, where it's it's there. You just got to protect him, and you got to give him more opportunities to learn so he doesn't make, bad throws or is throwing off the scramble and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I thought that scramble where the dude pulled his jersey was such a great escape. And that was exactly the type of play that we've seen him do in training camp, and we saw him do at USC. And then he just underthrew the football. Yeah. He had his guy. That play was there, even though there were a couple defenders around there. There was a window to fit that in. He just didn't hit it. And so that's the type of thing you kind of got to live with when you have a rookie quarterback. When you have a rookie quarterback who plays the style that he plays, that's some of those plays are going to end in interceptions. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I'll throw out. We don't have to talk about it much because we already kind of touched on Khalil Herbert. I'll throw him out as a winner with the touchdown. 6 snaps, 6 points. Okay, That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out too the Texans kicker. Man, that dude was just nailing them from deep.
I mean, that was the difference at the game at this point, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Like his two 55+ yard field goals are what the difference in the game was. And that's obviously I saw a lot of people be like, we got to change something here because these 50 yarders are just becoming chip shots at these points for kickers. And I don't know if you make the field goal, you bring it in a little bit or make it more narrow, but it is kind of crazy just to watch these guys fairly easily, make 50-yard field goals without a sweat.
Well, and I was listening to another show and they were talking about with the new kickoff rules too. I mean, a touchback, you get the ball at the 30. You don't really have to go that far to get a field goal in today's NFL.
Right.
A couple of first downs and you're in field goal range. I think that will change as the weather gets worse.
Sure.
Obviously the weather's nice for a lot of these outdoor stadiums, but yeah, a place like Houston with the roof, I mean, yeah, these guys are able to knock them in from pretty deep. I thought that was an opportunity maybe for Cairo to have a good game too. Unfortunately, it just wasn't a whole lot of opportunities for him out there. Okay, that's our winners and losers. We don't have to dive into the Colts too much. I know we touched on it. We're going to talk about that on Friday. But general vibes, Michael, like where are you at? Where do you want to see this team improve? In the short term, just like from week to week, what do we need to see next week against Indianapolis?
Well, I think in the grand scheme, the Bears are kind of where I think most people had them at 1-1, right? I think most people had them, beating Tennessee and then losing in Houston. And, I know obviously it didn't look pretty, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Positive and that kind of stuff, but this team is 1-1. They lost by 6 points to a really good Houston team in Houston in Sunday Night Football, where, Sean, I know you were there. Obviously, it was the first, Sunday night game there for a long time. Like, they were really, fans were really into the game. Like, they were really making a difference in that game as well. So it's one of those things where it's like, I know a lot of people are like, Shane Waldron's the worst. Like, why do we do it? Like, it's easy to just go down the rabbit hole of like all these terrible things. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't problems. There are plenty of problems. You got to fix with the offensive line. You got to fix some things with Caleb. You got to change some things up with the play calling. Like, where's Cole Kmet? Like, why are we not getting him involved as much as Gerald Everett? And what is the fascination with Gerald Everett? Like, I hear all those things, and I think all of those concerns are valid. But I think at the end of the day, you're 1-1. You are where you kind of expected to be. Your defense has proven that it's great. I think Caleb has shown some glimpses. He's got a couple games under his belt now. And he has a good opportunity to go to Houston for the Rams to come in to play Carolina and the Commanders and the Jaguars, where you've got a good opportunity now to go on a good stretch where you can go 3-2, you can go 4-1, but this is really where you can really start to gain some momentum. And you really have a good opportunity to do that. So I think you had 2 good learning games so far. You're lucky to win that first game because of Will Levis. Yeah. You showed you can compete in week 2. Now it's to continue to take that growth and, have Caleb throw for like 150 yards, have a touchdown, not have an interception, have the running attack kind of get going and kind of play to your players, right? Like, your offensive line might not be as good as you want it to be. Have quick passes so Caleb can, dump it off pretty quickly. Like, I think you need to adjust and you got to show that growth. And I think they have a really good opportunity to do that against the Colts on Sunday.
If this defense keeps playing at the level that it is, every game is going to be winnable. Like, they're going to be in the playoff hunt at the end of the season, no matter what the offense is looking like. And you do expect that the offense is going to improve as the season goes along. I mean, look, they were 0-4 to start last year, and it was doom and gloom then, and this team was toast. And they figured some things out as quickly as week 5 against Washington. Torian says for offense can just be average over the next 7 games, they're winnable. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. And I said on our season preview show, like, I thought this team would maybe would be 2-2 after the first 4, and then you look at, they got the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Commanders, 3 straight. There's an opportunity to win all those games, and heck, I mean, even the way that how the Rams looked on Sunday, like, that's a winnable game with the state of their offensive line and the injuries they got going on at wide receiver. They're super banged up. I mean, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are now both hurt now, and who knows if they'll be available for that game. All these games are winnable. And with this defense, I think that the Bears are going to have a shot to win every single one of these games on the schedule, especially like we're talking that start to middle portion of the schedule. It's going to be tough in the division, but you got to get yourself if the Bears can get themselves a couple of games over 500 before they dive into that NFC North portion of the schedule, you're going to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I think they really need to take advantage of this next period of games here. I don't know if you need to go essentially 4-1 in order to, feel really confident. Ideally, obviously, they'd want to go 4-1 and 5-0. I think if you go 3-2 and you look and your offense looks good and you're showing growth, but maybe you drop the game in Indianapolis, or maybe you drop the game that you shouldn't have dropped, sure. But yeah, I think this is a really important stretch. And I think I feel like at the beginning of the season, everyone's like, why don't we have a division game? Like, why is this going to take, why do we have to wait so long and whatever? But at the end of the day, I think this is really good for this team because they can grow in the first half. They can figure some things out. And for their sake, hopefully they're ready to go once the division play starts, because at this point, you wouldn't want to be 0-1 against the Packers or, against the Lions or anything like that, or honestly lose to the Vikings. The Vikings look pretty good now.
Vikings look good.
So, I think Bears fans should be happy that they don't have a division game right now where they can get the AFC South out of the way. They can figure some things out. And then once, real impactful games start happening, hopefully this offense looks better and this defense continues to play at the level it's played at so far.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here. We got to get going. Thank you to everyone who has joined us live on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up. It's a great way to support the show. If you're listening after the fact on Spotify or Apple, do us a favor, leave a review. Keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. We will let you know when we're going live. If you want to join us, join the conversation, hit us up in the comments. We love chatting with you guys. Be sure to head over to shawlocal.com to read all of our work, all of our Bears coverage, all of our high school football coverage is up there. We got lots of football for you this fall. Please consider subscribing at shawlocal.com. He's Michael Dwojak. Find him on Twitter at mdwojak94. I'm Sean Hammond. You can find me at Sean_Hammond. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back with you on Friday to preview Bears versus Colts.